With the first week done and dusted, teams have had the opportunity to show us their strengths and their weaknesses. Welcome back, everybody, to the second week of the NAL, where we have 2 more playdays for teams to once again prove themselves. I'm your host, Jeannie, joined with Lax and Foxe, and we're going to be walking you through everything past, present, and probably even future.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think last week, just kick off the NAL, I think was very top-heavy to start with. And then as we saw that second day, it started to, kind of balance out in some areas.
Yeah, I mean, there were some good takeaways for all the teams, but obviously the powerhouse teams are going to start it off hot. We expected them. Most of them got practice and reload. For the teams that didn't, it's obviously you're starting on the back foot. Yeah, you have the footage, but you aren't necessarily as warmed up as everyone else.
Yeah, for you at home, if you actually ended up missing the action for whatever reason, we have a little bit of a reminder and a video with Jacob, who's going to walk you through everything that you missed.
What a shock! Are you kidding me? Grixer punishes spirits, flips over and takes down Nafe with them.
If you came into week 1 expecting NA's top teams to stay on top, you had it right. DZ, M80, Shopify Rebellion, and Space Station all occupy the top 4 slots.
That's how you win a round. Where did his hair go?
And the social prediction was right about every game, except 2. Sorry, chat, you were almost perfect.
Would you say the fans should be excited for a more consistent version of M80?
I mean, I think it's really not that hard to be more consistent than the last M80 roster, to be honest.
M80 and DZ especially had a great week. They both own the best attacking and defending win rates respectively, and even though they both added players in the offseason, are off to a fantastic start. The Rebellion's right behind them in Spoit's first 2 games with the team, though they had one of the quickest wins of the stage and one of the longest in back-to-back playdays, but it was still good enough to keep them undefeated. Space Station had a strong opening game, but fell a bit flat in their second, losing 3 rounds straight after they'd already secured match point. They've had some slow starts in stages past, and this might be another.
How do you not see him against the wall, Newers? Come on now, there we go.
They still came away with 4 points on the week, but it could have been 6. The new teams came in and very quickly learned how tough it is to get wins in this league. Envy was the first team to fall to the new M80 machine on day 1, but did push Canadian and company to overtime in the most stylish of ways.
What is he, 2-0?
Not the greatest first week, but they made it entertaining. On the flip side, Cruelty 8 back-to-back losses while looking like they're still trying to figure things out. They're trying to become the first LATAM team to take a map off an NA team in more than 2 years. They couldn't get it done in week 1, but week 2 will give them a new set of chances. Same with Orkless. Their first week is one they'd rather learn from and move on. Through 2 games, they have yet to win a single attacking round, so at least they have something to focus on for this week.
Left us kind of wanting. All 5 of those games were quite lopsided.
No!
But it's Wildcard, Cloud9, and Oxygen who pose the most questions.
That was a nasty shot.
Not only were you flexy, but you were sexy too, Dream.
With an SMG, he can tear through both of them. He completely misses.
They all took 1 win and 1 loss. They all showed promise and flashes of what makes them interesting, but it looks like they're all going to need some more time to cook as the stage moves on.
All right, JJ, thanks for that. Either way, when it comes to the teams, we already touched a little bit upon the standings, so let's bring those up and have a bit of a refresh because it does mean that it is top heavy. The teams we expected to come out of the gate swinging did exactly that.
Yeah, and I already said it's pretty top heavy so far. This is typically how it shakes out at the beginning of the stage. It's the teams that you would expect to be at the top, but they by no means, when we get to the midway point towards the end, does this mean it's going to look exactly like that.
Yeah, no, and obviously it's the first week, so some teams had really difficult weeks going up against M80 Dark Zero. Some teams had easier weeks, getting them a lot of points. Obviously, every point matters because at the end of the day, you don't want to be stuck in a position where you're struggling for points towards the end of it. You're relying on other teams to win or lose. Right. You really want to have everything in your hands. You want to be able to get as many points early on as possible.
Yeah, well, let's hold our horses because it's only been 2 playdays and playday 3 starts today. But besides the competition between the teams, the talent also have their own little fantasy league going on. So Jesse, we're going to let you do your thing and explain it because Max has already said.
Week 1 of the NA League has concluded, and so has Week 1 of the NA Fantasy League. So let's check out who's on top and which player swaps have been made. Lynx leads the pack after 1 week thanks to big games from Pambazoo and Diffuser, who combined for over 200 points just on their own. Pamba was unstoppable in his game against Orglis, where he put up 14 frags in 10 rounds and had a flawless entry of 4-0. Meanwhile, Diffuser was a consistent performer, top fragging the lobby in both his matches against Team Envy and against Cloud9. XR Troika's Alphabet draft landed him with Citizen and Ambi, who managed to be number 1 and 2 overall, with Citizen having the single highest number of points in one game so far, beating Orglis with 12 kills and 1 clutch. Unfortunately, Citizen's big game came at the expense of X's other player, Epic, who ended up being the single worst performing fantasy player this week, meaning that X picked both the player at the very top of the rankings and the very bottom. None of our drafters chose Ashen in week 1 due to his uncertain role on SSG and generationally bad stats at the Reload tournament, but after breaking 100 points and being the 5th best player in all of week 1, Foxay has been turned into a believer and a swapped out dream with Space Station's loudest fragger. Looking at the standings, we see Lynx leading with almost 300 points. Ginny, X, and Taro and Fox all within just one good game of jumping up into first, and also Laxing, who is doing his best. There's plenty more Siege to be played, so make sure you come back next week to see how the standings have shaken up and get an update on North America's finest, right here on the NAL.
Yeah, Lax really is doing his best. Clearly not good enough. But we said that we're not going to talk about this because he's really hurt and sad. And it's okay, you know, it happens. You can't be good at anything, and that's okay.
Can't be good at anything. Oh my God.
No, wait, the saying goes, you can't be good at everything.
Right.
Totally.
But for me, I can't be good at anything.
Nothing. It's not a thing.
See, I could have pointed the wrong camera at anything.
It's not a thing.
All right, either way, let's have a look at the schedule for today, because of course they're going to impact the standings, but they're also going to impact the Fantasy League, and maybe Lax can get a couple of points. Every single game today is super exciting and interesting because of what we've seen from last week. For me personally, DZ, M80, the 2 top dogs fighting for that #1 spot, because it is only one shot that you get. It is a single round robin.
Yeah, I mean, every single game is a statement game for all the teams performing because everything's so close in points. Everything's so close in where we assume the teams are.
Yeah.
Obviously, DZM80, the 2 top hitters, that is a big one for me. I'm excited for more middle of the pack games. Cloud9 SSG, I'm excited to look at them. Cloud9, I'm hoping to see a little bit more consistency. Same thing with SSG. I mean, that's the game that I'm going to be looking forward to.
Yeah, I think every game, realistically, I think these are all going to be very fun games to watch. I think they're all pretty toe-to-toe in that regard, but if I had to choose one, I would definitely say the SR versus Wildcard, just for the fact that we saw Wildcard bounce back from the first day, then to the second day. I want to kind of see them relive that structure, what we saw in Reload, and I think SR should be a good matchup for them.
Yeah, but this is the NAL, not Reload. But we also have our first game of the day, and that's going to be OXG Envy. And when we're looking at both of these rosters, specifically, we're looking at Envy. We're like, okay, what can they do now that they're here in Tier 1? They've fought their way through Tier 2, but it wasn't really enough.
No, it wasn't, but I mean, there are some good takeaways from Envy. Obviously, out of all the teams that qualified or is playing at the bottom of the level right now in the NAL, I would say Envy has the most to take away from them. They look the most impressive, and when it comes to my expectations, I would say they were filled out by Envy, just like JJ Blast fills out his shorts.
Okay, this is, you know what, staying on the topic of JJ Blast, this is a player who has great resilience and who has been through a lot to be able to actually qualify here and have analysts say whatever they're saying about him right now. But either way, if you would like to find out a little bit more about his journey and how we got here, let's head over and hear from him himself.
Who is JJ Blast? I'd always wait for my brothers to get home so I could play on their console. Nicky J!
We'll wrap that bad boy up with that, JJ. Definitely tell he's enjoying it.
Give us those! Someone who never gave up on his dream. I'm a persistent guy. I'm a competitor at heart. It was always my dream to go professional in Rainbow Six Siege, and after years of dedication and passion, I finally made it happen. My first gaming experience ever came when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I'd always wait for my brothers to get home so I could play on their console with them. I always had a rule with my parents that as long as I did my schoolwork, that they were fine with me playing. And that kind of transitioned later on into life into my competitive gaming. Yeah, my girlfriend's been extremely supportive throughout my whole video game journey. I remember when I first started talking to her and hanging out with her, I would tell her, this is probably the time where I tell you I practice video games most nights of the week, and we can't really do anything that time. And she was like, oh, that's a little weird, but it's okay. But now, she's very supportive. So my best friend, like when we were in our senior year of high school, like we became really close, and I told him that I was playing like video games competitively. That was like something I would never tell to anyone, but I told him and he was like, yo, that's actually sick, bro. And I was like, really, you think that's cool? And he's like, yeah, that's dope. And I was like, ah, all right, man. But at the same time, he was also like the devil on my shoulder, where he was like, yo, just blow off practice tonight, come hang out with me. I was like, bro, I can, you know the goal. And he's like, ah, all right, you're right. So yeah, it's always been like a angel on the shoulder, devil on the shoulder kind of relationship with that guy.
He's been really grinding it for like the last couple years. You know, he's blowing me off to, you know, go to tournaments, whatever, and we try to hang out. But it's nice that he's doing something that he likes and everything, and, you know, he's enjoying what he's doing.
Around 2022, I turned 18. I was able to finally like compete to go into like Challenger Series. The first couple qualifiers, I had some heartbreaks. I lost in the grand finals twice. Probably in like late 2023, 2024 was when I really started to become confident in myself and know that I could do this. And then I started to finally put everything together when Challenger Series came around, and I used all those negative experiences, all those lessons to improve and learn. I was able to take that stuff and just like, it all clicked. It just happened.
What a finish for you.
Thank
JJ,
you.
Good luck in the NAL. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
That moment when we won the Challenger Series was crazy and hype for everyone, and it was for most of my teammates, but for me it was more of a emotional, because there was a lot of years of grind that went into that. So don't get me wrong, it was lit. My role on Team Envy is to be the in-game leader.
Sean, I'm pushing.
My job is to make sure that I'm keeping the team on track in-game, that whenever anything gets thrown our way, I'm there to handle it for everyone, and they don't have to worry because they know I have it. I want the hammer. Everyone's gonna watch this right now and say, this guy's crazy, this guy can't do it. He never could do it anyway. People said I couldn't win Challenger Series. I won Challenger Series, I don't care. The hammer is what I'm after, and NA needs a team that's actually gonna win something, and I have the passion to do that.
There is something so beautiful, not just about someone knowing what they want, but also like going after it, even when there are roadblocks in the way. And the fact that JJ is here is just proof of potential, and you know, he wants to hammer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of bold, but I mean, he is here, so he does have that ability to possibly reach that hammer.
And don't put him in the same box that you put yourself, okay? He wants to hammer. Just gotta believe. But Envy in general, we've seen them play last week, and we've seen glimpses of what we can expect, but there are still quite a few things that maybe aren't like hitting the mark necessarily.
Yeah, there's ups and downs, but they've displayed amazing qualities of identifying the gap. This is round 10 against Shopify Rebellion, and they're going for a back white take, but look at Rival right here. He understands that if he jumps into the site, there's nobody there to contest him. He's able to cut through the middle of the site, which allows the rest of Envy to just piece apart everybody on white side. They get full control of it. But here's another part where it's just a little bit of hiccups. Rival, the same player that made an amazing heads-up play, pushes all the way through, gives up a kill, but while the rest of his team is planning, it's just a little bit of discoordination. But we then go into round 9, beautiful identification of the gap. They understand that they can do a fast rush up white. You see JJ Blast, he gets the first pick, they get site control, but they don't focus on the plant. They just wait because they know Shopify Rebellion has to go for something to try and get this round back. Once they know that they've been able to get those picks a little more, that's when they go for the execute. And that is amazing veteran leadership and understanding where the gaps in enemy strategies are. Now they just need to be able to reel it in once they have that advantage. Still focus on playing on top of each other. Don't give up any extra advantage once they've already done the hard part, which is get that advantage.
Yeah, that's what we need from them today. They need to be locked in, and they need to make sure that these are not the kind of mistakes that they are repeating, and they keep focusing on their strengths. But they're going up against OXG, and OXG is also kind of in a similar boat where we've seen them do great things, but we've also seen them lose a game, and we've also seen where their issues lie.
Yeah, and the thing is with me, you know, there's still a lot of of questions unanswered for this roster. On paper, this roster, everyone is phenomenal in their own right. It's just a matter of what that team synergy looks like. And I got a couple rounds to kind of demonstrate, well, a round to demonstrate what I'm talking about in terms of kind of those question marks, because what we see on attacks is they look disjointed in some of those areas, mainly for the fact that, again, when you have so many different ideologies now on one team and you're trying to figure out, it begins a situation of too many cooks in the kitchen. And exactly in the round that I'm talking about of round 9 is exactly where we see that. This is a server cache side take. Typically, you're going to see whether it's going to be a server garage take or you're going to see a master split. But when you watch OXG take this, they are so disjointed on the sides of the maps that they're everywhere and not really together. So you see one pick lose out on server Balk. You can't do anything about it. You got another playing in mastery all by himself. Can't find anything. 2 players coming up red dead. Then the last guy is outside garage. There's no time left. And it really just goes to show that they are still disjointed. Where on their defense, they were solid. They went 5-1. So at least on that side, they're statistically doing better. But again, on attacks, this is where the question marks are for me, is because that is the harder side, and that is by far the harder side for an IGL to facilitate an entire roster to maneuver around the map.
Yeah, there were also questions in general around the roster and around individuals, players being able to show up. And I think last week specifically, Yaga was one of the players that we were like, okay, he's back.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously saw my fantasy league. So if you had Yaga in your fantasy league, well, the stonks are certainly up. And,
Yeah, but yours is doing the worst. So
mine is definitely the worst. I should have picked him. But anyways, like I was saying, back then when me and Fox first picked up Yaga, he was a phenomenal player, and he stayed consistent through and through. But as the years have gone, he's actually digressed. He actually hasn't been at the forefront of where OXG always been. Whether you could make that, he switched the roster, then he joined in OXG that was falling apart. But now we're seeing him back in the spotlight, and this is where we want to see him, because this is the Yaga that everyone knows and loves, and that he even knows himself to be. So if he can put up another performance like this going into today's match versus Envy, that would be a very good start for Oxygen.
I would say the biggest change for Yogg as a player as a whole is when I was departing from the roster, and obviously they picked up Gomez and Diaz, Yogg transitioned into that shield player that OXG desperately needed. So he was learning whole new sets of fundamentals of being able to have that shield mentality where you're trying to gather information but not put yourself too much. And obviously when you change the way that you think as a player, that is a very big thing to have to go through. So I'd say he's on the tail end of it. Now he's playing the Blackbeard, which is a little bit more of a hybrid of shield, being able to still go for those aggressive gunfights. So I think he's definitely found himself a little bit more comfortability right now.
Yeah, and when it comes as well, the comfortability, you want to see it on as many maps as possible. We've seen Club, we've seen Lair, we've seen Cafe, we've seen Labs from both of these teams. So when it comes to the map video, when it comes to where would you want to go, I'm assuming you want to stick to fundamentals?
Yeah, you don't want to go to big maps, and we're kind of seeing some of these big maps already being removed off the get-go because, again, we already saw in Clubhouse, they were strong in the defense, but again, the attacks are going to be the biggest thing here, so you don't want it to be so driven. So yeah, I mean, Clubhouse, this is an Envy pick too, so this actually makes sense. Now, I'm sure if you're Oxygen, you're feeling comfortable on here. You can right your wrongs from the previous match of last week, but if you're Envy, you do have a lot of VOD to go off of, but again, this is Clubhouse. This is the most basic of basics. So if you can't find your footing here, it's going to be a struggle on your attacking half.
It's very simplified. I'm honestly very confident with Envy in this position going to a map like Clubhouse because it's bread and butter. You just need to be able to do the basics, play your role, do your positions. If anything, even if OXG take a win away here, it stresses me out for OXG going further throughout the league because that just means that they're playing a weaker team. They're not going to any other map as practice. So are there other maps really that detrimental to be able to risk it against Envy? Or are they just trying to go to Clubhouse because they know it's their bread and butter? It just doesn't show that much diversity in the map pool for me.
Yeah, I love that you talk about diversity because even when we saw Oxygen even remotely find success back in the day before you left is they were playing maps like Clubhouse repeatedly. Every team was taking them, then they found their stride, but then immediately once they transitioned off of a map like Clubhouse, that's when they were losing. And this is almost a repeat of what we saw in the past, is just playing a very simple map where they don't have to adapt. They don't really have to play as focused and as synergized together. So I do agree for Oxygen. Whether they get a win or a loss here, I think they are going to need to eventually expand their map pool, especially with a roster that is comprised of different functions and play styles.
Yeah, I guess for their better safe than sorry, I guess they want to slowly potentially ramp up, and at the end of the day you want to gather as many points as you possibly can early on to stay in those standings. And we can talk about creativity or versatility and them not necessarily feeling comfortable on other maps, but you can also say they're trying to hide it maybe potentially for the teams that they're going to be going up against, because if you don't have to release that many VODs, why would you?
Which that's a great point to make. I mean, you are in a best of one. As long as you can find yourself in a top 6 and get into playoffs where then you can expose your map pool, then great. So if you can just keep playing Clubhouse, I think anyone's going to take one of their favorite maps every single day out of the week.
Slay,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But then it comes to the predictions as well in regards of what team are we expecting. You both went for Envy. With Clubhouse being the map that we have, with it being mainly focused on fundamentals, are we still feeling comfortable with Envy?
Yeah, I'd say if anything, I'm more confident in Envy. I mean, like I said, my expectations have been filled out, and obviously,
Just like the shorts?
just like JJ Blast Shorts. And when it comes to the Clubhouse, I mean, I really think it is a very cookie-cutter map. You just need to do the basics, and I'd say if there's a team that's going to have more hiccups on that, it would be OXG. I think Envy has the basics down. They just need to get a little bit more comfortable into the league.
Yeah, and I think in terms of, if you're comparing the two and who's made the most improvement, I think Envy by far has made the most improvement. They've had very hard-hitting teams where you could obviously say Oxygen played Cruelty as their last opponent, so there's not really much to take from, and even that game was kind of close, more than it needed to be. And like I said, the biggest thing for me for Oxygen really comes down to their attacks, where at least on Envy's side, we saw really good attacks and really thought-out strats.
Yeah, well, we're also ready to head over to the game with our casters, Parker and Jesse, who are going to be super kind and give us a prediction themselves in regards to whether or not they agree with the analysts that Envy will take this away.
Oh, thank you very much. This is quite the matchup for both of these teams. Envy has been on the upward trajectory here, but so has OXG. Both of these teams had a rough first week, Jesse, and then they went up against opponents that differed in skill level. I mean, I think you could make a very credible argument that last week, Envy's second matchup against the Shopify Rebellion was a little bit tougher than OXG's matchup against Team Cruelty. Today, we see which of these two teams is the real deal. Who's learned the most through these two play days? A newer team gelling with a new roster, or a team that's been around forever that has themselves a new roster on their hands? I'm going to throw it to you before I have to weigh in. Do you give OXG or do you give Envy the upper hand?
Listen, this is a tough one to predict because both of our analysts ended up going for Envy, who I think at least on paper are the underdogs in this matchup. I mean, they're a brand new team to Tier 1. They've got a tiny amount of experience compared to the wealth of experience on Oxygen. But given how Envy played, I don't hate that pick from our analysts. I'll mix it up. I'll say that Oxygen can win this because I do think they have a really good shot. They'll need to show us something a little bit better than what they showed last week. I don't think OXG, they beat Cruelty, but it was a 7-4 win over what many people would call the worst team in the league. That has yet to be seen, but regardless, that should have been a game that OXG kind of rolled over. Envy, maybe they lost, but that was such a close game against what many people would call the best team in the league. So, yeah, I mean, I really do think that this is Envy's chance to strike. If they can come in and get a big win off of an org like Auction, who have been around the scene for ages, then that would be a huge statement to kind of kick things off and get their first win in the North America League, but I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think OXG will be coming back after that first week, very invigorated and looking to make a big statement.
Yeah, I mean, Envy has a really tough schedule to start off this stage. Compare that to this OXG team, which on paper should have a little bit easier. They're going up against Envy today, who sit in 8th place towards the bottom of the standings. Tomorrow, it'll be their matchup against LFO/Orgless, which is in dead last. So 3 of their first 4 matches on the side of OXG will be up against the bottom 3 teams. Contrast that to what Envy had to go through, starting off against M80, who sits tied in first place against Dark Zero, a team that OXG did play in the first week as well. Then Shopify Rebellion, who is currently in 3rd place. After they get through OXG today, win or lose, Envy has to play up against Space Station next week, who are in 4th place. This is a tale of 2 completely different matchups and 2 completely different schedules. Things should get easier for Envy as this stage goes on. If they can emerge from the first 3 or 4 play days here, Jesse, in the top 6, they're actually in pretty good shape moving forward. The opposite is true of OXG. If OXG is not able to rack up as many points as possible until sometime around the end of June, things are going to start to look pretty dire when OXG will close out the season against Cloud9, Space Station, Wildcard, M80, and Shopify Rebellion. So what will we see? Both of these teams are still searching for somewhat of an identity. Oxygen obviously have Gomez and Yaga as holdovers from the previous roster, and the desk talked up Yaga's contributions from the first week of play. But adding Grixer, adding Forrest, adding Adam, all 3 players who come from 3 different playstyles, 3 different systems, there's going to be some time for them to meditate, maybe, or transcend whatever level they think they're capable of and exceed expectations. As for Envy, you saw the little vignette that we had on JJ Blast. He's somebody that's been talked about quite a lot through these first 2 play days. He's busy texting all of his adoring fans at the moment while we wait to get into this matchups. Or maybe he's just tweeting Snake back and forth. Maybe they're sending each other very cute messages to hype each other up. Yeah, look at that.
Oh, that's a
man,
cute
thanks.
message for sure.
You look great too, Snake. Thanks so much. But this Envy roster obviously has a lot more experience as a team than OXG does. And I know that the narratives that are sold by the desk and by us, and even ones that are parroted on social media, might differ from what you hear with us, what we're saying right now. But this is the team that was JJ and co. They've been around for a fair amount of time, and they've gelled as a team. OXG, obviously, the players are more experienced. I would argue the players are traditionally and historically more pronounced and maybe even better. But just because you take 5 individuals who are very individually skilled and put them onto one team does not mean that that team is going to function as good of a cohesive unit as a team that comes from tier 2 that's been grinding together and knows each other's habits and strengths, as you see JJ and co's team did before they got picked up by Envy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, OXG, not only have they just added 3 brand new players to this roster, they've also shaken up the IGL role a little bit. Last week, I incorrectly stated that Gomez was IGLing for Oxygen, as he has been for the past year, but they've actually shifted that responsibility over to Forrest, who he himself wasn't even IGLing for his time on Space Station, where he was obviously giving that responsibility up to False, who was one of the top IGLs in this North America League. So you've got a guy who's coming in. I'm sure Forrest has some IGL experience. I'm not 100% sure on some of his older teams like E-United or Astralis, how much of the calling he was doing. But clearly he's got some experience coming into things. That's going to be a new adjustment as well for OXG. They're still trying to figure things out, just as NVR. It seems like you guys don't agree with our analysts, and that's 65% going for OXG. But only time will tell. Thank you guys so much for waiting so patiently. We'll jump right in to the operator bans. Last time we saw both Kaid and Blitz get permabanned on this map in the one game that's been played in the North America League between OXG and Cruelty. We'll see if those do repeat. There we go for the Kaid and Blackbeard. I mean, what is BB if not just a Blitz without a flash? So I think it's a very reasonable removal. And then a Clash would be an expected ban here. A Mira could be an expected ban. I don't hate a Ying or a second shield as well to come out from Oxygen.
I mean, if you just look at the results of the first 2 weeks, right? Envy pushed a really, really good team into OT. Now, not all of it was to the strength of that Envy squad. Bandit and Monty are the last 2 bans, by the way. I don't know if you wanted to weigh in on that or if you were expecting those to appear, but...
Quickly, Bandit Kaid, super interesting. No electricity available for the walls on this. It's going to make breaching really tough for Envy.
Now, it'll be lights out inside of Clubhouse for these defenders. They'll have to use mute if they want any gadget denial or any wall denial to be present. First round, OXG will forego any denial whatsoever. This will simply be very annoying lineup to deal with. You've got to deal with Fenrir, who maybe not as strong as Fenrir used to be, but you still have to worry about your vision being obscured, taking close engagements, finding where those F-knots are littered throughout the map. You then also have to deal with the stall potential that comes from both an Azami and a Goyo, and the stall potential, frankly, that comes from a Smoke, too.
10 seconds remaining.
Smoke isn't necessarily for pure stall. Depends on how teams want to employ this British operator, whether you're going to use him in the midpoint of a round to slow down an entry that might come from the shield of JJ Blast, or if you want to keep that Smoke of Yaga in a safe position to just deal with and feel out the execute when it comes in the final 20 to 30 seconds. A good team can blanket the same area with 3 Toxic Babes for roughly 40 seconds or so. At that point, a lot of teams have to determine whether they want to take some damage or whether they just want to suffer through it.
Looks like it's going to be Gomez Yogg roaming on that top floor. Gomez played this Goyo both times that they defended this basement bomb site up against Cruelty, so this is a common pick for Gomez. He can place those canisters in the basement, and then it doesn't matter if he dies up here on the roam. Yaga, I mean, you said it, a little bit more scary if he does go down in this aggressive position with those Toxic Babes, but he gets the first pick instead. Entry player JJ Blast, the first guy to die. And immediately, Yaga kind of lets him know with a bit of a taunt, too. So, Envy, it doesn't get easy here against NA's top teams.
No, I mean, we asked how we would see the Smoke get used, and I mean, it's not a very safe... Oh my. Oh, there we go. Okay, good. I was very worried that Twisted DC'd, but he's just sitting waiting. Both Yaga and Grix are getting quite active on that main floor, so what could have been just a turtle-style defense is completely catching Envy flat-footed. Now it's Emilio's turn to die as Gomez is on the board. 3 separate players from Oxygen, all with kills. A smoke taking out a blitz is not uncommon. For it to happen in the first 25 seconds and without the use of a gadget is what's most uncommon about it. First kill for Envy comes on the board with about half of the round to go, and they'll double up. The only 2 remaining players from Envy, both Twist and Rival, to pick up some kills. Rival was instrumental in tying up and closing the gap between Shopify Rebellion and Envy in their matchup last Friday. We'll see if he can find the same success here against OXG. They'll need a big game from both him and Twist if they want to keep pace. Final minute to go, and OXG's early lead has all but vanished. It's 3 against 2, with not a lot of utility left at the moment for the defenders. Attackers, though, still well equipped.
Twist and Rival joined this team kind of as a duo not too long ago in Challenger Series. Now they've got to make this happen. I like their clock. They have Diffuse Kit. They're pushing together down main stairs. They've got still util to open the wall as well. Probably going to be running through Ashwall to get the plant down in Armory, but the pressure from Rival elsewhere is going to be huge.
He's looking for a move on in. Rival catches Forest. Envy has really gotten themselves out of a bad situation. They'll be obscured for a second now in the back of the bomb site as Adam and Grixer are the last 2 standing. Rival bottles the shots onto Grixer, and now through the smoke, Twist has no choice but to abandon the plant, and he will swing wildly but miss most of those shots. OXG clamp down on the defenders or on the attackers, and as defenders win the first round.
Yeah, nice anchor play from Grixer. Obviously, that roam was really strong from the 2 legacy players on OXG, both Yaga and Gomez, getting huge value as that 2-player roam, killing 3 for their troubles. But the fact that they got traded out meant that was not a free round for OXG. They had to have some solid defensive plays. They didn't overextend. They didn't lose bodies where they didn't need to. I think they read quite perfectly where that push was coming down through the kitchen hatch and the main stairs as well. So nice to see some solid defense coming out from OXG. Both early round and late round looked super strong there. So that's a really good start from them. Again, I think those couple of picks from Grixer down in the basement, kind of the MVP performance. Grixer was the only player on OXG to go positive in both of their first 2 games.
I want to go back and look at that first moment of the round that was missed while we do our preamble, and it's unlikely that you're going to see a support operator engage against anybody, let alone a shield, that quickly in. I mean, it catches us off guard. Certainly caught Envy off guard. You know, with how close that round got, you have to ask yourself, is that because strategically Envy had the right idea, they just lost some pieces early, or was it Envy reacting to a bad situation and OXG not handling that reaction well enough? Obviously, losing your IGL and a shield right off the rip is not ideal, and OXG didn't really suffer much through those first 2 engagements. There might be another early engagement now in round number 2 as Twist was tempting Gomez. There's not the only hard breacher on the side of Envy, so if Twist died, not all hope would be lost, but you've got JJ Blast who will need to get to the objective with his exothermic charges. 1 will go off now. He's got Diffuser in hand, and this upstairs execute is going a little bit cleaner for Envy because we're 40 seconds in and none of them have died.
Can't complain about that. They still have some threats that they got to deal with off of the bomb site, though. Look at Forrest all the way down in Oil Pit, trying to play around with Adam. On that Valkyrie, this is not a strat he used in their last game against Cruelty, so it's not something Envy would have seen if they were VOD reviewing that last game. Still, I'm sure they're doing their best to drone this out. Doesn't seem like Forrest has been spotted, but he's starting to move towards main stairs, so might be deciding the flank just isn't worth it. Leaves these these cash extension players a little bit solo. Yaga's still inside a cash, could be a victim soon.
Out go one of those death marks, so information will come out in hand for Rival as he can relay that to his teammates. Gomez was being hunted down, but immediately the death mark disappears. Now it's Snake to fight on blue stairs as you've got OXG spread out all over this map. Good trigger discipline by Snake as he allows Adam to flee the vicinity, and he will go for a rotate potentially over towards Forest before thinking, no, maybe blue is the safer bet. All the while, the remainder of Envy is getting ever closer to the bomb site. Again, JJ Blast will hold that case, so he's going to be the one to head into the site and get Diffuser down, or rely on his teammates for proper coverage.
2 players in the basement, Parker, Adam and Forrest. That's going to be a really awkward position for them to be in. If MV just rush the site with a man advantage, plant on top of the bed, there's not a whole lot they can do about it. Probably have Valk cams in the site. Opening pick, though, for the flank does bode well.
Rivals' focus was over towards blue. So were so many other players from Envy's focus on this bomb site. Immediately bounced out of the vicinity. And OXG sweeps right through them. A single kill for Envy to be had, but then 5 from OXG. A punishing round, but that's what defenders on Clubhouse will do. Off to a 2-0 start. I guess they heard us, doubting their potential, and OXG is looking to make this a statement match.
Didn't love that Deimos play coming out from Rival. He used his first track as they were pushing in through the cache extension, and he ended up just tracking Gomez, who was sitting on site as an anchor the entirety of that round. Yaga was roaming over towards cache. Adam and Forrest were roaming towards the basement and over towards rafters, but instead he tracks the anchor, which doesn't really give him much value or any potential to make a play. And then is the opening death to those 2 roaming players down below. I appreciate that he was going down, trying to hunt down those guys, and sometimes without information, maybe they didn't get a good ping on those operators. I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes it can be tough with the Deimos, but I think Rival wanted a lot more out of that round than what he ended up getting. That Deimos can be such an important operator to prevent these players from playing aggressively, but unfortunately Rival just couldn't pin anybody down. Back-to-back rounds now, Parker, where OXG have had a pretty extended 2-man roam, and both times they've been either completely unpunished, not cleared out, or have gotten a huge number of frags for their team.
Attacker's objective is to locate a bomb.
I mean, look at that scoreline for OXG across the board. Everybody taking part. I mean, whenever a team starts off in an 0-2 the way that we have seen, with one of those rounds being so lopsided, the kills will not look particularly good on the side of the losing team, and that's exactly what's happening with Envy right now. You know, 4 kills over 2 rounds. They got 3 in the first round, so they'll kind of paper over some of their deficiencies. They're hoping for maybe something a bit earlier this time, and they drone out the Azami of Gomez, who's playing down by the main door, surrounded by castle barricades, so nestled in and quite safe in that position, but he manages to get out unscathed, and now Snake will have to use those Rotero drones to cut through the defensive line set up by OXG. Portuguese operator, well suited for that, and the rest of Envy will tear through this top floor hold. The second attempt at attacking the top floor, albeit a different bomb site. Will Envy have the same success? Well, they've very quickly opened up Jacuzzi, but will OXG hold this position or fall back?
I like this call to go for a master side clear. You know how difficult it's going to be getting into rafters with a zombie Jaeger on the board. Still a lot of players, though, of Auction have read this, and so they will fight them early.
They're looking for some action, and they're going to find it. It's Rival to do just that. Adam punished on the roam. Not far removed from the bomb site, but far enough that, well, he had no support whatsoever. That'll throw a spanner in the works for the remainder of OXG as they very quickly respond to that. Yaga looked like he was fighting for his life over towards red. And out come the Kiba barriers. All those castle barricades that were set up by Forrest, designed to slow down Envy, don't really seem to have worked all that well. Now, you fall back, and that's your second line of defense in the hands of Gomez. There are mirror windows as well to give more information, but not sure if they're positioned right now to slow down Envy's advance.
I mean, still decent toxic beige from Grixer. The shield from Rival is very much known, and there's going to be a pinch coming in from Emilio in the main breach too. Lots of time to try to work something on the side of Envy, but what can they actually muster? There's no roamers at this point. Everybody is inside the site, so it's really on Envy to make the move.
There go explosives galore. Rival still searching for another entry after he'd been so successful pinching Adam. The next target from OXG is just patiently waiting for the German shield operator to materialize. Snake guns down one. It's immediately answered back, and OXG is on the board. They line up, and just like in the second round, Jesse, every single target is found and punished. JJ Blast has been reduced to smithereens, and it's just about the worst way to be reduced. The remainder is found in the hands of a razor wire. As he was so low on HP, the vault in is unfortunately short-lived. Cut up by a piece of gear set out by OXG at the start of the round. No active players involved in the mayhem, and OXG have found themselves with a perfect site rotation. Rio for the team in green.
Not very often. You see a 5v3 execute fall so flat on its face as it just did for Envy. 3 rounds have yet to find even one. They'll take out the Azami. They'll respond with the Blitz. That Blitz was brought a couple of times from Envy, so I don't mind that ban at all from Oxygen. got a good opening pick in that last round, even though it wasn't able to find much value inside the execute. You saw a rival in that execute trying to go for a flash with the blitz shield to get a pick inside the site. I don't think it would have mattered if he had gotten that flash off or not, because he just got shot in the back immediately after. I think it really speaks to how good OXG have been on these anchor positions, just being able to hold down the site and trade their teammates. They're all holding crossfires. They're all watching correct angles so that nobody can get caught off guard. Both times as well, it's OXG holding things down with 3 players. You go back to round number 1, 3 guys in sight, they stop the push. Round number 3, 3 guys in sight, they stop that push. Now, it was a lot tougher in round 3 than it was the first round because they had that man disadvantage. But even still, you got to respect that. The anchor play from OXG has been absolutely phenomenal through the first quarter, excuse me.
The anchor play's been excellent, but let's talk a little bit about the roam as well. That very first round, roaming really does throw you into a mental spiral. You've heard players talk about this on podcasts, and they've talked about it on Twitter as well. Prior to SSG popularizing the roam, that was done by both the Vigil and Mute Mozzie combo that was available. For those that don't remember, the SSG roam, as it was affectionately referred to, was largely enabled by Castle, Mute, Mozzie, and Vigil. You would deny tons of intel on that top floor. And a map that is usually quite routine in the way that it plays out has become far more unpredictable, and teams needed to spend an awful lot of time droning out the top floor in particular to ensure that there wasn't a Vigil waiting to flank you or a Mozzie in an area that you hadn't expected. Prior to that, it was about 1 minute and 30 to drone out Clubhouse, and then you would attack the bottom floor or the middle floor or the top floors or wherever you wanted to go. OXG roaming so aggressively on round number 1 puts that fear into Envy that, hey, they might do this again. We need to be a bit more thorough with our droning. And time again, we have seen at pro level, teams will play a turtle style and then suddenly switch it up, or they'll start off with a heavy roam. And it really does set a pace that is different from just, if you had to deal with 3 turtle setups to start this. So kudos to OXG for reading into that. And Envy is now going to spend more time droning out the map to ensure there are no surprises.
Yeah, Yogg and Adam holding down this top floor once again. They tried to skip some of that droning, I think, because they had the shield in first rounds. Now that's not available to them. I'm a little surprised by this Capcan pick, because usually that's thought of as a shield counter, but with all of them banned, of course you can't bring one for the second half of this game. Yogg are playing very solo at the moment. Adam is top floor with them, but he's a little bit far away. If Yogg dies, it's probably not going to be a trade. He's been so good on these entries so far, though.
Once again, just this race extension. It was Yogg on the smoke in round number 1. Guilford's over towards Juicy. With the reinforced fall, and I keep real is up. If the captain of Yogg had been up to that point, you got somebody from Envy off guard. They are EDDs strewn about the map. Oh, Adam was very good. He did for and opening pick with half the round to go. The rival does too. Great position to be in if you're Envy.
Especially because OXG a lot on that top floor row. Didn't really bring anchor operators. There's no smoke on the board here, but not a whole lot else. Some of these strong anchor ops you tend to basement of Clubhouse. Have some Capcan traps, maybe some Mozzie Fest, but there's really not that much, which means that Envy should have a wrong execute. They've had strong executes in the past. I said that last round. 5v3, tossed it in the bin. They need to be clean on this execute. They've got so much soft breach. They've got enough hard breach to open whatever they want with can openers on JJ and Emilio's ace charges. They've got the Bs from JJ, get information, the logic bomb. This has to be the round where Envy get there first.
Yeah, I mean, I worry about this in terms of momentum for the second half. Envy will have the good fortune of going for the matchup, but at that point, you gain such a big lead. We could see a 5-1 first. How can the go canister and the environmental effects? So Yaga now have clear to attack for Urge. Bricks are the first one on the board. Is now JJ black position with the fuser at the halfway point. Objective play for Envy has not been this. This will be set the post pull up to Gomez with teams lows. Players Mendy lined up, and Gomez is now trapped over towards these. He'll have to fight his way towards Church, and it's a pre-fire from JJ Blast, the team captain, IGL himself. Give love to Kimura. That was just a staged photo, but you know what he meant. A bit clearer that round that we see on the screen.
Yeah, and a desperately needed round. You know, they had the advantage going into it. They closed Bush. Wasn't the cleanest, right? There were some good picks coming back. You can't not mention there's been this game, and he was good in that last round too. But the trades were strong enough to come back from MB. Even when Grixer got Gomez got one to bleed bodies, Twist was able to step up, trade back. It's okay if you lose some bodies in that push because you've got the trade coming in right afterwards. That's what you do when you push with a man advantage. So much better coming out from in that round. It feels they managed to kill some of those nerves in the tack timeout. It's something that JJ said in an interview on Envy's Twitter, that they had settled a lot of nerves in the first week, and now they were ready to just keep getting better, to keep improving over the next couple of weeks in the NA League. I wasn't so after that first quarter. It did feel like they were shaking a little bit on those late rounds when things mattered the most, but that round was a lot cleaner. Watch out for Grixer because he has continued to absolutely dominate the game, but he can't 1v5. He needs his teammates in those late rounds.
Grixer's role on the most notable of them playing under the Shopify Rebellion brand was do in a slash role. So roles had big, not always a 6-role, because the most of them are just the abilities of the player themselves. You know, Citizen have a very similar slacks and used to like any of his teams on OXG before was picked long ago. That flank lurk role, you wanted and it differs from a regular role. It's not the drones waste utility. You're just only to waste time kills. Not going to be roaming to soak up grenades, etc. Roaming to not get out, so that when the execute happens, get back to the bomb site with 20-30 seconds left. The theory problem is that you're getting back to the bomb site and the full player that a fool to be in Grixer's shop. He's playing a lot now on this OLG. Good to see an evolution on him.
Yeah, 100%. Yogg and Adam kind of fill that role now, being a bit more aggressive on that defense. Grixer's been excellent in anchor so far. This cash clear is being really pressured by Envy. Yogg takes despite being on that Gadger. There's no follow through with it. The buck down below of Rivals trying to make something happen. They've got the breach with the ace. They've wasted a lot of time on this though, Parker. If they don't walk away with a kill on a Yogg, that's bad.
Yeah, they need to battle time a little bit better. I mean, Envy not suffering so early is good, but now they've lost one player. Position to pick poison. Almost finds 3 kills, walks 1. Both rock and last. We limping further of this round on duty. Clash is still on the board for OXG with a minute to go. All told, an excellent by
completely had a hard breach to the side of MB2. I don't believe they've gotten Jacuzzi unless I missed that. So this push has to come fully from construction. They'll have Logi hatch if they want it, and the windows as well. That's where everybody on MB is currently pressured up. Forrest has a bit of a one-dimensional push incoming then. He can try to slow these players, but he definitely needs his teammates to step up as well. Grixer still in sight, has been so good, so he's going to have to step up.
I'm just waiting. This is where things get a little bit tricky. How you in for Slaughters Twist. Gomez died. Tried to 3v3, but Grixer's eating them alive. You talk around from Grixer. Well, you got and a third as he sends the round into the win column for his team. Playing those shits, being supported and hugging the bossy. Look at Grandma, you after not seeing you for quite a long time. All benefit just the first half.
I think that these free played in the North America League, Grixer has been one of the best anchors in the entire league. His defensive play, both in the first week and now in the first couple of rounds, has been phenomenal. He had a 214 KDR after the first week of play in the North America League just on defense, which is an insane stat to be putting up. Obviously, only 2 matches. You expect that to come back down to earth. But now in his 3rd game, his KDR on defense has been 0.0. A little ridiculous, and that stat's only going to keep going up. I doubt Envy will be able to bring it down. In fact, mathematically impossible at this point to bring it too much farther down. So he's got to be feeling himself. Obviously, a bit of a role shift coming onto this team. He spent his entire career effectively on that Shopify Sonics United core for the past, I don't even know, probably 4 or 5 years at this point. He's up. A lot of people weren't sure how he was going to do, but I mean, he has been flying on this OXG team. By far, their best player.
Remind me again who is Grixer on their fantasy team?
Is it you, Parker? Do you have Grixer on your fantasy team?
I don't think I do.
I don't have the stats I don't have the sheet in
I'm
front
gonna
of me,
be honest with you. I don't know who's on my fantasy team. I know that Canadian and Spoit are because they were my first and last picks. That's all I know.
You got Spirits because I remember you got both Canadians.
I also have Kansan, and I can't remember who the 5th one is.
We can just say it's Grixer. We can just lie.
I don't want to lie to the people watching.
Wow. All right.
I value the audience. Some of you I don't care for. You are welcome to fight over which of you believe. If you're in chat right now saying he means me, smiley face, which one? Which one do I mean?
Oh, Grixer was picked up by Laxing because Laxing wanted to he wanted to pick up all Hispanic players for this stage.
It has not been working out so far for him, but today he looks like the smartest man alive. We will see what happens in that Team Cruelty matchup, but Grixer is white hot at the moment. One more round as defenders for OXG, and a minute has gone off of the clock. Envy very quick to assert themselves. They've drone things out on this top floor and are now punishing OXG. JJ Blast with 2 kills, and now Twist will find one as well. A hope of a 5-1 half for Oxygen seems to have been snuffed out at this point, as it's Forrest and Gomez to defend against the almost full HP hordes of Envy for 1:35. I mean, I don't really want to be in this position with any gun, but with the UMP, probably not. It's a very steady gun, but not a great one for multiple engagements. They do sit nice and cozy next to the bomb site, despite an armada of drones being put their way.
Force down in garage. They need to make some kind of a play. They know if this is a 5v2 push, they've got no chance. That's why Forrest is trying to force a run out. He sees them and hits. Nah, it's Gomez gets a shot instead. Now Forrest in a 1v4. I got baited a little bit, Parker.
Now he's got to walk his way up. Red stairs flashed out. No active coverage as Forrest continues to saunter his way up there, and JJ Blast is just around the bend to get that final kill. Diffuser was going down in the hands of Emilio. JJ Blast had either dropped it or swapped it over earlier on. So objective play was coming in for Envy, though it didn't end up being successful. It wasn't necessary as all the kills came in ahead of time. The most common scoreline that we see in this game is 4-2, and that's exactly what happens at the tail end of that first half. OXG 4 rounds as defenders on Clubhouse. Yeah, that's right where you need to be. No real surprises through the first 6 rounds in my eyes, Jesse.
I'd like to see a clash ban from Oxygen. It was kind of the one thing that was causing them problems in that game against Team Cruelty. They will follow that advice and take Clash off
I
of the board.
tried to veto your Clash comment. I don't know if you heard it. There was a little...
I heard it was very
I didn't like
faint,
that.
though.
I didn't care for that.
Well,
say something
I'm sorry,
else.
Parker. It's gone. Along with that Clash ban, they took out the...
Don't like that either. Try again.
Envy decided to take up with Capitao and Ying, which is a really interesting set of operators to take off the board. Obviously, 2 ops that can be kind of used to remove players from certain positions. If you know someone's in a strong spot, you can hit them with the Capitao, you can hit them with the Ying. That makes it really hard to exist on the map. Means that the shields are still going to be up for Oxygen if they want to run that route. It means that they're still going to have opportunities to play any sort of hard breach, which occasionally does get banned here on Clubhouse. But those kind of removal operators will get, well, again, removed. So nice to see that coming out from Envy. A little bit different from what we've seen previously on Clubhouse as far as operator bans. But yeah, I think, as you mentioned, I mean, a 4-2 split, you go into defense. This is still very much a game that MV can win. It started really rocky down 4-0, but I think they've recovered to the point where it's very much in the cards.
No, Wild Card plays later today.
All right, thank you, Parker.
They actually play 3rd against the Rebellion.
That'll be a really good game. That's like the number one non-partner team versus the best partner team as far as Reload is concerned. So you got to kind of battle that way.
We have a great day of games today, and if we can take a second here just to talk about the schedule while we're in the first moments of this side swap. Up next will be Cloud9 versus Space Station. These teams find themselves in 5th if you're Cloud9 and 4th if you're Space Station. After that, Wildcard versus Shopify Rebellion. Wildcard finished 4th at Reload in Rio, and they are very much hoping to prove it wasn't a fluke. They go up against the 3rd place Shopify Rebellion while they find themselves in 7th. DZ and M80 are in our 4th match of the day. Those are the 2 teams who currently sit tied in 1st, both with 6 points. And then we end the day with Cruelty and Orgless. They both sit in dead last, tied with 0 points. So a very big difference between those 2 matches. But all of the games today, with the exception of Wildcard and that Shopify Rebellion game, are close in the standings. So they should produce some exciting results. As for this round now, Jesse, things a little bit slower with Oxygen now in the driver's seat for the remainder of this regulation.
Yeah, you're right, Parker. I mean, this is a very different defense from Envy. OXG wanted to roam every time they went to the basement. Envy has said, we're going to not. They played JJ a little aggressive on Central Stairs. He is still there, but will sprint away from the nade, just as I mentioned it. So, yeah, still 75 seconds. Envy are not feeling too bad about this, though. They didn't try to roam. They didn't try to get an early advantage. They're happy to play this 5v5. They've got mirror windows in sight, Toxic Babes, Goyo canisters, jammers, Kiba barriers. So much utility will be in the bomb site. I'm looking at Adam on this Sens. What are we going to run with it? I've seen Sens plays go over towards Moto to try to make a plant inside of Church. I've seen them go over towards Arsenal as well, kind of coming down through Ashwall to protect that style of a push. Adam's got options with this operator, and of course, any bulletproofs or Warden, neither are being brought. Won't be able to see through that in this last round.
Now, things are going to play out pretty predictably for the next 40 seconds, but they might do it on the side of OXG without as much information as they would like. Those mute jammers obviously providing very limited scope of intel for OXG as they drop one of those Sens smokes into the main part of the bomb site. Now Adam will move over towards blue and do the same thing to cut off blue, cut off Church, cut off that dummies line of sight, cut off AK line of sight, and really put the heat on Envy. And Envy is going to start to use their Toxic Babes. They're going to start to use their explosives and their bullets as they exchange words with Oxygen. OXG, though, with 2 kills, 3 kills, as Grixer picks up 2, and he's still alive. He's got the diffuser as well. Twist is last man standing, and Gomez punishes him. OXG firing on all cylinders as they find success in their first round on attack.
Yeah, continuing to have great play from Grixer. You mentioned it just there. He had to pick up the defuse kit after Forrest entered in through the kitchen hatch, dropped it on the Monty. He was the opening death for Oxygen as Emilio was able to find an angle playing on the Mira, but it didn't seem to matter because that beautiful push down through blue, you combine Sens with a blitz, and it's just absolutely impossible. So toxic to hold that part of the map, and Envy found that out the hard way. Here we see the entry point, really nice from Grixer. Managed to get that angle in and the plants just in case, because time was getting a little low there, but the time was used well. You know, it's not always bad to push with 25 seconds left on the clock if you spent your time well opening up walls, clearing out utility, and setting up the perfect push you want to go for. I think that's exactly what Oxygen did. I didn't quite predict what they were going to do with that Sens. I had no clue they were going to push it blue. That is somewhat uncommon to see with the Sens operator, but just shows kind of how versatile that op can be down in the basement of Clubhouse and on a variety of sites in Siege.
I think I touched on this the last time we saw some Sens play, and it's that the main frustration from Sens as an operator comes from the unpredictability of their gadgets. That thing can just have a mind of its own and roll around in unintended areas, which betrays you and your overall strategy. If you're not as precise as you need to be, that's okay on some of these sites, and that's what we saw on the side of OXG. They dumped all 3 of them in, and Adam just dropped inside of blue as every single angle was covered except for the rotate into Church, which is where Adam's main focus was when he dropped. He covered himself, he covered off his teammates, the brawl happened, and the main drop happened as well from inside a kitchen. It was a great point of distraction for this OXG team, and Envy unfortunately fell for the bait.
It's an interesting setup from Envy. Obviously, they've got Snake going down below, went for a spawn peek. That was one of his best features up against Shopify last week.
was something that really started things strong. Envy wants to get things going. Is the only 2-6 at the moment. The cash clear will come forward now from Oxygen, with Yaga being on this Blackbeard, trying to make the space, breach some walls as well. He can push through that if he needs to make the rotate through the top. That C4 on the castle barricade could surprise someone, but nobody's near it at the moment. Especially Grixer kind of lurking around on this sledge. Could be dangerous, but at the moment, he's not really the main focal point. Oxygen have opened up the jacuzzi wall now. They've still got pressure towards cash, but they haven't cleared it. I'm wondering what Oxygen actually want to do if they are going to commit to clearing cash. They don't have a lot of resources for it.
An odd little quirk right here as JJ Blast picks up a kill and will become only the second player in the lobby to be positive. Yes, we're not talking about even. Everybody in the lobby not named Grixer and JJ Blast are either positive or negative in their, or sorry, rather neutral or negative in their kill differentials. That is a phenomenal thing at round number 8. Envy's getting picked off left, right, and center, and some of those KDs are going to change as we're, at this point, burying half of the server. Grixer upright at a 14-2. What a statement match it's been from him. Forrest eliminating Rival, who was taking some damage from the fire and from his position. Forrest does double duty. They couldn't see the forest nor the trees on the side of Envy, and they can't see a win in sight either. OXG dominating this matchup, and 6-2 the scoreline means match point for Oxygen.
On the desk before this game, Laxing had a really nice replay where he kind of showed Oxygen's struggles on attack, specifically on the top floor of Clubhouse. And he showed how, things weren't really connecting that well for Oxygen. They weren't able to work as a unit to make plays around different parts of the map. That push was probably the best push we've seen from OXG throughout this entire season. I mean, they had a bit of a bait going on over towards cash. I got kind of caught off guard from it because I thought, listen, they're taking so long to clear this cash extension. There's a guy inside a Raptor. There's a guy outside the CC breach, but it doesn't seem like they're able to take this ground. Envy made a move right here with JJ Blast coming up from Oil Pit, killing Gomez, and you would have thought that's the ace down, that might be Kit down, that's the brunt of the push, but no. Every other player on Oxygen was clearing the site. Yeah, maybe Rival and JJ were taking control of that cash extension, but OXG didn't care. They were in the bomb site planting the defuse kit. It's that mind game that really just caught Envy off guard. I don't think at any point in that round, Envy realized the push that was incoming from Oxygen, and they just played them like a fiddle on that offensive half. It is night and day difference from OXG's attacks this game versus their game against Cruelty.
Yeah, OXG has looked by far and away the best that we've seen them in these 3 play days. And this is one of the hazards about trying to talk about teams so early into a stage. We spent quite a long time praising Envy for a lot of what they did in that second match against Shopify Rebellion, but people need to recall that Shopify Rebellion also made a litany of mistakes in that game that were punished by Envy. And it's not that Envy is a bad team because they didn't win the match, or it's not like Envy didn't deserve to get to overtime, but there were multiple instances where if Shopify Rebellion had played the game that we know they're capable of playing, it would not have gone to OT. Sometimes mentally you just need to reset, and that's exactly what we saw with that SR team, and they managed to win both rounds in OT, and what could have been a closer game was not to be had. We were praising Envy for the way that they played, and again, Envy has made some serious strides. It looks like they've maybe stepped back a little bit in this matchup as OXG are currently appearing as world beaters.
To force overtime, and they need 4 defenses in a row, but they were the single worst defensive team in week 1, winning only 30% of rounds on the D side. Now this could be an opening if they can find an angle onto the Blackbeard. JJ's hunting for it, but the Nitro isn't going to connect either. Clearing Raptors should be a decent task for Oxygen. They've got the Grim, they've got these shields to walk up, but it's never going to be easy playing against an Azami.
Their backs against the wall. A huge round for Envy needs to be had for them to put together an impressive tally to close this gap between them and OXG. They'll start with Rival getting the very first pick. He's been consistently good for this team. Emilio will follow up on what a frost trap that was placed earlier by Twist had accomplished, knocking down Forrest. And with just a little bit over a minute to go, OXG sitting on match point are in a 3v5. Not exactly the situation you want to find yourselves in, but they are attacking on Clubhouse. You're used to the defenders winning 4 rounds. At this point, they could win the next 4 on the side of Envy, and OXG has already accomplished the goal that most attacking teams have, which is getting 2 rounds. Gomez outside of the breach, he's down for the count, and now it's all up to Adam to wander up red stairs with the bailiff in hand. He hears some footsteps and realizes, maybe we won't go there. 40 seconds left. What is the next step for Adam, as only Snake has died on the side of Envy? It looks like Adam might actually call a timeout as he sits next to the leaf-covered kennels. And we'll wait for the final 30 seconds. The round will effectively be won at this point, as there's really very little Adam can do. Envy will win their third round. OXG will take a brief breather, and Adam might pad his stats in the meantime. But this round is effectively over, Jesse.
Yeah, Adam will concede this one. Nice shot to end it out, but it doesn't matter. Diffuse Kid is unreachable. Classic Frost Trap at the top of Raptor Stairs, may I add. That's one of the oldest tricks in the book to counter the Monty push-up of Raptors, and you can see MB feeling good about a round like that. I thought they dealt with the shield pressure really, really well. It was very obvious what Oxygen were going for in that round. You compare it to the previous one, OXG had signified from the very beginning, we are committing everything to clearing out Raptors. We've got a Grim, we've got 2 shields. We didn't put any pressure onto Rival, who was playing over towards Master. So all of Envy were able to turn their sights on that garage side of the map. They were able to play up with the Azami. They had some Nitros that were going in towards the bottom floor push as well. So they really dedicated all of their focus to garage, beautifully dealt with the 2 shield players, and then everything crumbled from OXG. They will be respecting that Sens that came out on the bottom floor, as Envy will remove it. I believe the first Sens ban of the North America League, might even be the first Sens ban of Siege X since the game came out. I don't have that full stat for you, but regardless, bit of respect being shown for how good that push was on OXG down in the basement.
I feel like in a lot of ways, Sens could be an operator similar to Warden that you think is more reactive, and you don't play because you think there's limited playmaking potential, and then a team finally discovers how you can coordinate well around that operator, and we start to see Sens with a lot more frequency. It happened to Finka, it happened to Mozzie, it happened, of course, to Warden. So, I mean, it's entirely possible. Again, I think the big hang-up with the operator of Sens is that the issues with predictability of their gadget holds them back. Obviously, a bit of a moot point because Envy got rid of Sens, so we won't see that operator alongside Capitao and Ying. Those are 3 operators that rely on either smoke or some kind of coverage that's created by their gadget. Ying, of course, with the Candelas, meaning Envy's just going to want some clear fights here. They just want to take engagements head on. They want to limit the options that OXG have at their disposal to hide, to cut down certain angles, and to force fights into certain areas. Can OXG adapt? That's the question. You look at the lineup that they have right now, and, well, it's a pugilist-heavy lineup. Very little obscurement could happen because there's no smokes and there's no flashes on the side of OXG.
Gomez hoping for a fight. That smoke grenade giving away his position, and then he uses it just to back off. The re-engagement now not advised. Twist walks away. Beauty shot to get that opening pick. And we see Siege's newest skin in the game as well. The mythical Valkyrie skin that was just added to the game. It looks so good getting that opening pick.
Jesse was paid to say that. Every time he compliments the Valkyrie skin, they deposit a roughly about 1,000 Rainbow Six credits into his account. So you're going to hear it quite often. Look at that. Woo. Isn't that thing beautiful? 1,000, please. Thank you. I'm hoping to capitalize off of it too. SiegeX did allow them to take more liberties with those siege skins and add different parts to the gun. I remember a couple battle passes ago, they started to add guns that had different augmentations. So they would have like different parts of the gun, or certain things would be missing, and it would change the overall model of the weapon, which was a first, and now they've just iterated on that, and the change to SiegeX allows them to go obviously much farther. And that's what we see with the Valkyrie, is that reload animation in particular is really something to behold in this game, and something that even a couple years ago, Siege players probably didn't think possible with the engine that we had.
How do you recover if you're Oxygen? This game, winning this would do it for you. This would close out the game. It might just be a Yaga sprint down main stairs on the Blackbeard. They've got 50 seconds to try to work a solution. They've got most of their players still up top, kind of around Moto, kind of around that kitchen hatch as well. They've got most of that open thanks to the Habana being brought by Grixer. If Yaga works a pick, that's huge. They've got both shields here at the main stairs, and Moto hatch appears, it's open, but JJ's just playing it. This is an extremely aggro position.
The shield is down. Forrest looking for some coverage. His heel's shot away with, and you best hope it's not the Achilles for this OXG team. Envy tearing through them, but OXG answers right back. Time continuing to run away from OXG, so they have to pivot. And over towards Church is where they'll go. Forest's prayers go unanswered. And Grixer with 15 kills as last man standing, finished off by Emilio. And Envy now streaking on their side, 2 rounds in a row. The gap closing. OXG still on match point, but this game a lot closer than it was just a couple minutes ago.
How's that for an advertisement? A little 3K the first time we see the new Valkyrie skin come out? I don't know, Parker. It might have some gameplay boosting abilities. Just makes you play with a little bit more confidence. Obviously, beautiful stuff coming out from Twist the individual. I thought JJ's play in that round was super risky. It paid off for him, though. Aggressing back into Moto when the hatch is already open is a huge no-no. That's something that should never manage to work out. But JJ recognized the clock was getting really low. Auction had been going for these slow pushes. So he said, why don't I push up into this really weird spot, get a free kill? Was traded, and I think credit to Oxygen for that. But the couple of kills that went down early in that push, with Yaga not being able to survive long in it, and obviously Gomez, the first player to go down in that round, just meant that they couldn't play that trade game. You know, they didn't have many good options for where they wanted to push that defuse kit. Forrest first went over through Ashwall to try to get the plant down in Armory. That didn't work. He was receiving some spam. So then he moved over towards Moto, over towards the church wall. That's where he got blown sky high by the nitro from Twist. So really good stuff coming out on that defense. And Twist, I mean, the MVP doing it in a beautiful style.
Well, all that praise that we gave to OXG in the first half is still very well deserved, but that was quite the final kill. I saw the knife, but I didn't think it would be a head-on collision inside of blue. I thought it would be a backstab. But all the praise that we heaped on Oxygen in this first half should rightfully go to them, but we need to heap a little bit more praise into the real MVP of this series, Jesse.
Who might that be, Parker?
The defender side of Clubhouse. What a performance it's having at the moment. My goodness.
Yeah. Really just crushing.
Just crushing it right now. Beating everybody's expectations. Bravo, the player of the game right now, defender side on Clubhouse. That little quirk that I talked about with the only 2 players in the lobby that were positive, and I don't count assists, I count just straight scoreline. If you have 6 kills and 6 stats, you are even. I don't care how many assists you have. Assists in the way this game functions are not the be all and end all. I just look straight at the 2 kills and deaths numbers, but obviously things have changed a little bit. Forrest is now positive. Grixer obviously still positive. You've got Twist as well, who's positive now, and a number of players, once again, still on that even level. Grixer has fallen off a tiny bit, but I mean, that is to be expected. It's a much harder task for him to entry onto such a defender-sided map, and he's playing utility-heavy roles as well. This time, it'll be on Flores, and JJ Blast looks for something early. He goes fishing, and the first 45 seconds, you know, he doesn't get much, but you know, they say a bad day of fishing's better than a good day in the office, and JJ Blast exemplifies that.
Not uncommon from Grixer as well. Last week on attack, he had just a 0.71 KDR. On defense, that elevated to, as I said, 214. So he has been a player that has excelled on the defensive side, less so on offense. I think that does come down to the role he's playing and that more kind of support side of things for OXG. This is another one of those rounds where if Envy can win it, I mean, we start really getting into the head of Oxygen. They focused heavily on this jacuzzi side of the map. They want to be able to open things up from this angle. They haven't really touched that sort of cash side of things that Envy have been playing a little bit. They've got Emilio over towards construction. Twist down below inside a bar. These players won't be the first engagements. Instead, JJ opening death as Adam just swings the breach, sees the head, and has better reaction time for that pick. Doesn't look like it's going to be traded, Parker, either. So that's a really big pick to take out the captain of Envy.
Yeah, and I mean, at least he'll still be able to call from the bench, which is good. And again, an operator like Malusia's passive gadgets, thank goodness for Envy, trading it right back. Twist is having an excellent game at this point. He's been receiving a fair bit of criticism after his first 2 matches. Did not see him putting up numbers on a role where he should have been putting up numbers. This time around, the defender side of Clubhouse is his to hold 2 kills here in round number 11. Yaga now dealing some damage. Rival tears through him. Adam on the board for OXG. They desperately need some kills as he and Grixer will now work together. Try to narrow down these 3 remaining players on the side of Envy, and Grixer with an uncharacteristic miss finds the follow-up onto Twist. He's a little bit past his expiration date. Grixer will need to clutch out. 16 kills will be all he can write home as Emilio finds a two-piece to send us straight to the 12th round. My. Last round of regulation. Envy all smiles as they've put 3 rounds in a row and put fear in the hearts of OXG.
Listen, I didn't love that fight he took with Grixer at the end, but Twist has been having one hell of a day, both in that early round, getting the 2K on the roam down below, and then throughout this whole matchup, he has been putting up huge frags, and I have a very distinct memory of Twist. Over a year ago, I don't remember when this was, but it was after he had left Luminosity, where he played one single stage of the NA League. He came into my Twitch chat, and he asked something along the lines of what I thought of his time on Luminosity, and I gave him a very honest answer that, you know, I didn't really remember much of his time on Luminosity. I didn't feel like he had a whole lot of impact on that team. I hardly noticed him up in Tier 1. And his response to that comment that I made has always stuck with me. He said something along the lines of, well, I guess I'll have to make it back to Tier 1 and put up a performance that you remember. And I think that's that kind of spirit that after he says something like that, you just believe him. You know, you can feel how much he wants to be at this level. You can feel how bad he wants to be performing with the top dogs. It's all of these players' dreams, but I think Twist especially, from playing so long in Tier 2, getting his shot in Tier 1, that shot going horribly, having to play support for LG, who immediately just dropped him right after, now making a comeback, grinding with JJ and co through that Challenger Series. It's been a real nice story from Twist, and I'm honestly super happy to see him succeeding. Plenty of work still to do in this game. Job's not done. We're in round 12, Parker, but it's a beautiful story.
I think it really comes down to how you view professional sports and esports. I mean, there's some great stories for both of these teams. There's been a lot of ink spilled about JJ Blast. You saw that Envy did a documentary on him. He was also interviewed by Jacob, who did that vignette for us earlier in the broadcast. But Twist is somebody as well where it's heartwarming to see a bounce back from someone who had an opportunity to play at a top level, didn't find the success that they had hoped for. If you're a fan of a good storyline and you like underdogs, then there's a lot to talk about between these two teams. But just from a human level, we don't aspire to put people down when we come into these broadcasts. Sometimes we have to be a little pessimistic about the chances of certain teams and negative about the certain contributions of particular players, but that's not today. Today we get to talk about all the good things that's happening in this match and the good things that are happening, because there's been plenty and there's still the potential for a handful of more rounds. It's incumbent upon Envy to win this one though, and that would be their 4th in a row. Right now it's Rival holding out hope over in weight room, doing some heavy lifting himself. JJ Blast, quite the finesse as he takes the first kill. Grixer answers right back by eliminating Snake. The Blackbearded Yaga getting ever closer, and Rival trades that one. That's a victory for Envy in that engagement, but they lose Twist. And after 3 rounds in a row, Envy now finds themselves in what could be the final round at a disadvantage. Not an ideal spot to be in after all the work you've put in to close this gap.
Yeah, out of Toxic Babes on JJ as well, so they've really got no utility. Magnet and an impact in the pocket of Emilio, that will be it as he throws out that last magnet before the push comes through. 60 seconds to work if you're Oxygen. They've got full master control. The CC wall is open. I expect to see someone rotating over there. In fact, Forrest already is. They need to be sharp on these frags. Everything comes down to it, and what a swing from JJ. That wasn't what he wanted.
No, and Grixer feasts on him. Emilio, who had a standout performance so far on defense, now draws even in his numbers. He has to deal battle with both Grixer and Adam. Grixer looking for kill number 19, and it might just have Emilio's name on it. Grixer will hold that diffuser, so Adam might be the one to cover. They're toying with that A-bomb site right now. Emilio will get droned down. They see him ever so slightly on red stairs, prompting him to move on over, and he can line him up. Edging his way through the door is Adam. Grixer will get the diffuser down, and Emilio hears this. Can he rotate in time to shut him down? Adam with the pre-fire. They read him like a book as the drone at red was still up. And OXG's team comms win them the round. Adam capitalizing off of it, and despite the scare they had, OXG walks away from this matchup with a win in regulation.
Another game where Envy comes so close, but not close enough. Really felt like they had that comeback, but I mean, you said it. What a great drone. OXG knew they had time in that final execute. They took it. Envy tried to take that time away with 2 big swings. One of them worked out, one of them didn't. Thought Emilio could pull it off, but just not quite.
Envy, the bridesmaid, but not yet the bride. They don't go to OT yet again, but they put in a hell of a performance. Oxygen, though, they win the matchup, and with it, they get 3 big points. We got plenty of Rainbow Six today, so we'll be back in just a couple minutes as the broadcast rolls on.
Back to I'm gonna push. Ready?
I can plan. Hold. Look
Yeah, perfect. I can go red. Sever wreck. Gonna go red. Look red. Nice! Oh.
Good shit, boys.
Holy shit, bro. Dude, wow.
Nice! Mike Kozlowski, I love you!
That was a bad lobby, bro. I'm convinced that was a bad lobby, bro. I'm telling you. It was a fresh lobby, bro.
Welcome back to the NAL. That was a pretty close game, if I do say so myself. OXG looked like they were in the driver's seat for a while, and then they weren't, and they were again, but they closed it out eventually.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully they were able to close it out. I mean, Envy, it looked like Envy was slowly making a little comeback, and I would have said that Envy should have made it to at least to overtime. If it wasn't for little mistakes, over peaking, it was really sloppy play from Envy's side of things.
Yeah, I mean, and then for Oxygen side, you know, we saw a lot of good moments from them on their attacks that we didn't really get to see through Cruelty, so I'm glad to see on that front. But again, I mean, I think Parker said it best. The hero of today's game really was the defenses of Clubhouse. Both teams looking good on defense, but again, the harder side is going to be attack, and that's where I said specifically I wanted to see Oxygen excel in.
And at least I guess that's like a positive takeaway where it's like, well, at least they got the fundamentals down when it comes to the defense, so something that they can build up on. But when it comes to the blacklight detail for this game, it is going to be going over to Grixon.
Grixer is my boy, and I mean, you got to give him the blacklight detail. Grixer was the performer of this match, and you know, we've already talked about him. What round is this? Oh yeah, these are just highlights of him. Yeah, I mean, again, talking about Grixer's just the blacklight detail, I mean, he was the best performer of today's match. You got to give it to him. You know, this is the thing that we've talked about Grixer. He kind of is a standalone player. He's a one-man army in a sense. But him falling back on this more supportive role, he is thriving more so than ever, in my opinion, that I would think that he was. But that is where you see development in players, where they're so used to doing one thing, and then you have to switch to a roster that changes the dynamic of how you play. And I think Grixer's doing a really good job at being able to adapt at this new environment. Like I said, just being able to be in the site, play so defensively that we're not typically used to see him. I mean, Grixer is an evolving player through and through.
Yeah, he's such a flexible player in all of the roles that he can play. He can play almost any single role, be in any position. But I'm glad that you highlighted the fact that he can do it on his own. If he's put in a situation where he has to make something happen on the fact that his team, it puts him on an island on his own, or he's in a situation where he has to make a big play, he's constantly doing that and performing. And obviously almost getting the 20 kills. Yeah. You know, he was absolutely farming against Envy. He was always in the right position. And I really liked how coordinated OXG was today with slowing down, not allowing overpicks or situations where they would give that man advantage away. They played very disciplined.
Yeah, and we have Forrest as well from the side of OXG ready for an interview. So first off, congratulations on the win that you guys have secured here today. Started off pretty strong, became a little wobbly. You're able to bring things back. What does the comms situation look like from the side of OXG when you are in that situation where you're like, oh, actually, we could lose this?
I think, you know, since we have a lot of vets in the team, like, you know, we have some ice in the veins still, so, you know, we're keeping it cool. You know, we kind of feel the frustration, but, you know, we just got to keep playing and just close it out.
Amazing. Well, Forrest, one question for you as like the new IGL for OXG. I just want to be able to pick your brain on the fact that how is it going about identifying a new OXG's way of playing, especially with so many people, so many different ideologies on the team. How do you as the IGL pick one way, or is there a right or wrong way to go about it? How do you come to that decision?
I think we're still trying to find our identity when it comes to how we should play the game and how we should approach certain rounds. And we're still having a lot of growing pains right now. So right now we're kind of just playing for the long con. Like, let's just keep getting better, keep focusing on one game at a time, keep getting better in practice, and you know, we're progressing with what works and what doesn't work.
Well, Forrest, congratulations. I'm glad to see you guys finding success. I talked about this on the desk previous in the match. Your game versus Cruelty versus the game now. I said one of your biggest issues so far is obviously your attacks, and I think that speaks in to the different ideologies. I'm kind of curious. Today, you guys look better. Now, it wasn't perfect by any means. They did start to bounce back, but on the attacking halves, what's kind of been the biggest struggle, but also from the biggest struggle, what's been the biggest improvement?
I think the biggest improvement from attacks is that, we're able to reflect and improve instantly, whenever we see a problem. And we need to keep working on our, in-game adaptation and mid-round adaptation. Obviously, to show second half for attacks, we're pretty poor. Like, we're getting slammed, no trades. Like, we're still working on it. It's a work in process, but, I'm pretty confident that our attacks are going to be much better in the future.
Not that well. You got 3 points, so you got to feel pretty good after that.
Yeah, it feels good to walk away with 3.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time for the interview. Obviously, it's also really good to hear that you guys are aware for some of the issues that you're facing and that you're looking to work on those. You still have a little bit of time ahead of playoffs, so I'm going to let you go, and we will see you around.
So, take care.
Bye. Okay, you know what? We love a self-aware king, self-aware IGL, knows what's wrong, knows what's to work on. But then on the other side, it's Envy, and I think Envy being able to push it this close is also quite the feat.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it is. At the same time, there was a lot of rounds where it looked like Envy would get an opening pick and then somebody would just swing a window or overextend and give their body away. And yes, you could say, oh, it's great that Envy's keeping it close, but at the same time, I would go as far as to say is it really looked like Envy could have won if they just started off better earlier in the series and focus on the discipline a lot more.
Yeah, and I think what these newer teams are really going to learn is the small things, especially in T1, are more crippling than the big things are. So the fact that they can, hopefully identify and be like, oh, maybe I don't swing off this after we get this man advantage and just learn how to play around it. I think they will develop that a lot faster than some of the other teams that we've seen in the lower end. Yeah. But overall, I think both teams have a very good takeaway from this. And for Envy, for me, the biggest one definitely is their resilience.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have to because TikTok, it's, clock sticking, playoffs, you only get to play your opponent once. You need to be in the top 6, but we still have 4 more best of ones today, with the next one being Cloud9 against SSG. And trust me, this is one that you don't want to miss, so stick around and we'll be back after the break.